When I was 16, my parents went on vacation, so I decided to have a party. And everyone from Fairfield, Connecticut, my town, came. So I was the most popular kid in town. No, I was the least popular kid in town and everybody came. But it didn't make me any more popular. So I wanted to try different things to desperately make myself more popular. In my town, choir was a thing that the popular kids did. Not like that Glee show. Like, the popular kids were really in the Glee Club. And all I got out of being in the Glee Club was the instructor throwing chalk at me every time I sang out of tune. So that was not going to work. And so my final desperate move to become popular was to join the track and cross-country clubs. And I'm not going to tell you that I was the best athlete on the team, because I wasn't, but I was the most dedicated. Every day at 3:30 p.m., I was in the locker room, switched into my shoes, shorts, gym clothes, and ready to go 5, 7, 10 miles or more across my town. But in that particular January, it was really cold. I remember as we gathered around Coach Don Cabbage, we looked at him and he said in his gravelly voice, "Boys, it's just too darn cold out there. I'm gonna have you run indoors because I don't want you going out in that cold weather." So we all took off, and I took off next to Clark, who was this blonde-haired fellow, and Ray, who was this dark-haired fellow, who were also two of the most popular kids in the school. So I thought to myself, hey, what could happen bad by, jogging next to the two popular kids, right? So we took off and we went through the high school, which was not that big. I remember we went from the red corridor to the green corridor to the blue corridor, and again to the red, to the blue, to the green, because it took about 12 laps around to do just 1 mile. So we're doing this about 20 minutes, going around red, green, blue, red, green, blue. And at a certain point, Clark and Ray and I, we went around a corner in our formation, kind of like in a V-ish formation, and we start horsing around, or at least Clark and Ray were horsing around, and they start elbowing me playfully, right? And at a certain moment, Clark, the light-haired fellow, gets the physics just right, and he sweeps me off my feet, literally. And the next thing I knew was that I was cruising across the high school corridor at 100 miles per hour like a nuclear warhead. And in that blurry moment, I remember myself first hitting a doorknob, my head, then the door, then the wall, before I end up crashing all the way down to the high school floor. Now, my memory of that period was a little bit blurry, but I will tell you that previous to that time, the only time I had seen a bubble on a person's head was in a science fiction movie. Now I was the person in a science fiction movie, except it was real, and I was in a pool of my own blood. The next thing I knew, people were encircling me the way all the animals encircled Simba in The Lion King. And all these people were looking down at me, Clark and Ray and other people, asking me if I was okay, and because Clark and Ray somehow felt like they might be responsible for my present situation. And we didn't have cell phones then, so a runner ran to find old Mr. Duncavage, and he was joining the circle of life too, checking me out. I was whisked off to a hospital where I got a dozen stitches. And the doctor told me to kind of take it easy for several days. I did, and I did eventually get back to running, but not for much longer, because it was at that point that I realized that I shouldn't go around chasing popularity, literally or figuratively. I also realized that I should stick with the things that I am good at. Being an athlete, I wasn't good at then. Being an athlete, I'm not good at now. Being a student, I was a good student then. I'm a good student now. When it comes to being a student, my other classmates, they're emailing me at all hours because they missed class, they weren't paying attention in class, they forgot to take notes, they fell asleep, they were on Twitter. So I help them out wherever I can. And all of them want to be friends with me on LinkedIn. And through that network of LinkedIn, it's like I had inaugurated a new era of popularity that I didn't know when I was 16. But through the magic of LinkedIn, I also know what Clark and Ray are doing. Ray, he's just doing a normal job in New York. Clark now, he's still knocking things over. He lives in South Carolina. He's a lumberjack. Thank you.